let it go. I will introduce myself. I am Jim Gustafson, Professor of Psychiatry at the University of Wisconsin Medical School, giving my 25th of 36 lectures. Today's lecture is called "The Surface is So Dangerous." 1 year ago, I gave a lecture to 8 candidates for our residency program. We were in the first week. Hey, come on in, Gene. We were in the first week of the electronic medical record, and of using it, or I should say, it was using us. And I will give you the thrust of the lecture from a year ago, and then compare it with how I see things now, which is quite different. I was then posing the electronic surface as a dangerous tendency for losing touch with the plight of our patients. I was also posing what kind of play by us would save us, and also the patients from this peril. A year later, I see the electronic program also called, I love this term, smart set. Such irony, Ryan, you know? Smart enough to be stupid. As only one version of a much vaster danger that we're all in. The much vaster danger we are all in is what goes on in all corridors of power, not just our corridor of power in medicine, where constant operators are selected to repeat themselves all day long. Just think of any line for anything, from bank to get your airline ticket to, or to the front, up front here. The people that have to staff these things are only following orders, and they're not supposed to invent things. They're supposed to follow orders precisely. And therefore, there's no fresh energy in that. They just gradually get more tired. Now, long before they quit, constant operators have eyes that grow weary repeating themselves, of course. And they're no longer present to anything but the order of the program. Like airline hostesses, they can smile, and they can be nice, but it's wearing them out. It's inherently exhausting. All of our patients are in the same condition. In yoga, this is called the front body. To take it as reality would be like confining one's examination to the skin. So I will conclude with how it's continuously necessary not to take the front body as reality. That's our subject. The common expression for the front body as reality is this sentence used in the electronic record that begins with, "The patient did not endorse," suicide, homicide, whatever, psychosis. It is as if not endorsing X, Y, or Z actually means that it must not be the case. Such folly is everywhere in our electronic records of psychiatry, but far worse, it is implicit or gets folded into our minds. We must be ready to read, as we were talking, Brendan, at the beginning, about the telltale signs of the back body and where it is actually going, whatever the front body endorses or doesn't endorse. Our common problem. Here we go. Now, if you looked at my website a year ago, there was an introduction of my work, you would have found the common problem posed as an electronic current that we are immersed in, a tide of history, of world history. Isaiah Berlin posed it this way. He said, "We are immersed and submerged in a medium that precisely to the degree to which we inevitably take it for granted, we do not and cannot observe it as if from the outside." Our medium is the mega machine that we're all in. It's the reduction of the mystery and complexity of our lives to the mechanical flow of production and consumption. I wrote that the way to observe as if from the outside, to step back far enough, is by catching the striking detail in the flow that we are submerged in. Specifically, the simplest detail I can imagine is that of any prey animal caught in a net it cannot get out of. It will be in chronic fight-flight. This, of course, is very dangerous to the well-being of that animal. A year ago, I then described myself as just such a prey animal caught in the electronic net of epic training, to use the electronic record. So I'll give you a day in the life, 24 hours in the life of the author as prey animal in a net. You like that? You'd rather it be me, wouldn't you? The Tuesday afternoon of that first week, I'll never forget this week. You all would like to forget this week. I was in training in the electronic medical record, and I was flooded with 4 times. Thalassinos was there. We were sort of smiling at each other. 4 times as much information as I could take in. I went home and I told my wife it was absurd. And we forgot it and had a fine evening reading out loud to each other. We got to the back body ourselves and instead of the front body. After sleeping well for 6 hours, I woke up about 3 in the morning like this, right? Feeling very uneasy about something, and I went up to my study, as I always do. I've spent more time in my study at 3 a.m. than you would want to spend in 10 lifetimes. But every time I get an alarm message from my dream, I go up and write down what it says. That's one way to get really good at this field. But, of course, you wouldn't want to do that. It's a little hard on you. I quickly found my way to what was disturbing me. I imagined myself with my 8 o'clock patient who was on the edge between suicidal despair and fresh developments of her superb talent. Hangs, you know, those kind of cases. And there I would be caught up in documenting the visit in the electronic medical record and hardly able to attend to her when she desperately needs my full and complete attention. I would be the prey animal in the electronic net. She'd be in hers too, and I wouldn't be attending to it. What I had been told to do if I got stuck in such a situation was to go get what they called the red shirts. You remember the red shirts? The red shirt computer experts to come and help me. And I could just imagine how awkward that would be for my patient, if not humiliating, given her shame about her being suicidal. And then I just sat there and I thought, I know what I'm going to do. I can slip out of this electronic net by seeing that I can leave off the documentation. I can finish the session with her. I can go get a red shirt later. So let us look at the whiteboard, and here's the, Ed, you can go to the whiteboard. On the left, there's epic surface is so dangerous. There's my patient in the jaws of the monster there. And there's me getting to, I'm sorry, the epic surface is that monster, and I'm taking position 1. I'm getting into the mouth of the monster, and therefore I'm not good for any damn thing else, right? And I just thought, no problem, I'll just step out of it, okay? But if I hadn't rehearsed that in my mind, I would have been up the rest of the night thinking, this is too dangerous. All right. Now we can stay at with the whiteboard because I'm now going to give you my favorite dream of perhaps my whole life, which I had between 3 and 6 in the morning. I often get a beautiful dream after I figured something out. Like the gods say to me, "You got it, doctor." This time. So now I'll tell you what happened between 4 and 6 in the morning. I eased out of the danger of being captured, and here's what happened. There were four things that happened, which are somewhat hilarious. Starting on the left, one of the gods was standing on a steep column high in the air with a heavy computer backpack on his back. It looked just like my new, what I just gotten is a new computer backpack. So, you know, it's a little, if you've ever done a lot of hiking in the mountains, which I have, heavy packs on your back when you're right near the edge is a good way to kill yourself. So in the dream, I was tossing balls right past this guy to see if he would reach out too far and fall to his death. The thrust of the comedy is precisely the same as I would have at 8 o'clock, not to be tempted by the huge weight of the computer backpack on my back, standing on a high and narrow column to reach out too far for more electronic tosses in my direction. Paul, I'm sorry to make fun of IT here, but but I didn't do it. My dream did it. I'm innocent. All right. The next scene was I was sitting at a service station, which looks like a service station near where I live, and there were 3 chairs, you know, on the asphalt in front of the service station. It's kind of like a psychiatry department. And I was in the middle one, and one of the guys was sitting in the left chair that you see there, and he was firing balls at my head to see if I would duck. And then I looked at the other guy after I ducked, and he gave me a wink, like, good move, you know. The thrust of this comedy is not to be tempted to do too much electronically, but to duck the threats aimed at my head, also electronically. I can see you're having quite a good time with this. In the next scene, I come to now the gods are really nice to me, having passed these 2 tests of total stupidity, right? I came to a ski mountain with my ice skates over my shoulder, hoping to skate this beautiful mountain. That's that 3rd diagram in green there. And there was this big, beautiful Dutch skater woman who stood in front of the mountain. And I asked her, how are things going on the mountain? She says, terrible. 9/10 of the mountain is covered with a mess of heavy rain and slush. But at the top 10th of the mountain was beautiful ice for skating. And she kissed me on the mouth. Pretty good, all right? Yes. This reminds me of Thoreau on top of Mount Katahdin, where he was always saying he loved to be there. It reaches up to the gods up there. In other words, to a beautiful. So it's the thrust of this comedy is that most of the electronic mountain is just slush. But at the top, not to be dismayed, because at the top you can still skate beautifully with your patient in the morning and do what you need to do and make the transitions that you need to make. It's uncanny the way your instrument will tell you that you've got it right, you know, and you've gotten yourself into a beautiful transitional field. And then the final scene, which you might even enjoy even more than the other 3, was I was walking down this mountain, came past an old summer house it had a porch of rusty screens, so no one could see out of this thing. Speaking of rusty surfaces, right? And I kicked at one of the screens with my foot, and it landed below me on the mountain. And one of the gods comes out of the house, and he grins at me and thanks me for improving the view. The thrust of this comedy is to kick away these screens of the surface that only block the extraordinary view of the mountain. All right, so now we can come back from the whiteboard, unless Ed's probably been going back and forth already. All right, 1 year later, now we're going to get that. We've had comedy, now we're going to have something quite clinical and quite serious, as I always come down to in the end. I always come to this. Now, this is the vaster problem I see a year later, and I want to tell you the most important contribution I make for every case told by a resident to me on call when I'm the backup. Like Brendan, this is one that Brendan and I dealt with, and one of the other residents a couple weeks ago. One of the residents calls me to say, essentially, along with his usual program of questions, that this is a patient having command hallucinations to commit suicide. His dilemma is whether or not, of course, to put the patient in the hospital for safekeeping. I cannot tell whether or not to put the patient in the hospital from what I've been told. Yes, I've been told the entire smart set of questions and answers that would satisfy a panel of psychiatrists to qualify as board certified in psychiatry. I say to the resident that his report has two big holes in it that hide from us the back body of the forces that will kill or save the patient. Only when he and I can get near these forces will we be in a patient to palpate what is pulling this patient to his death and what is pulling the patient through for the time being. I say simply to the resident to please ask two questions. First, please, this is for the resident to say to the patient, please tell me when and where the command hallucinations began. They always emerge out of a context of darkness that never appears on the surface. You have to know that you have to go find it. The context in which the patient is told to murder himself. Second, please tell me what went on in your mind after you were so ordered to kill yourself. Only there will we be in a position to measure the strength of the patient's opposition to murdering himself. Because we're right there. No surgeon in his right mind with the right lower quadrant pain would be content with examining the surface of the abdomen. He or she would insist on palpating what is deeper below for the telltale signs of a dire process that would need to be intercepted in the operating room, versus the telltale signs arguing that the case could be watched for the time being. Only in psychiatry, of all the specialties, do we lack this necessary depth. The surface is so dangerous to trust. Thank you.